We've had 2 or 3 years in
history creation of the US trade zone would be absolutely massive, and Washington Post is talking about making Donald euros and pounds.
We need to. The other thing is that, if we're going to actually push back against corporate power, we need to not just be saying no to stuff, we need to be making real demands, we need to be really ambitious. We need to not just say we won't have the shittest thing possible, we need to say we'll have the best thing possible, thanks. So we've come up with an energy bill of rights, and we're looking for groups to sign up to. It includes things like we all have the right to affordable energy to meet our basic needs, and we all have the right to energy that does not harm us, the environment, or the climate. And we all have the right to energy that is owned by us and run in our interests. And if you're from a group, we'd love you to sign this as well. That's the same email address. Thanks a lot. No TTIP. Well done to James.
Privacy is the right to talk to a journalist or a doctor in confidence. Is the right to decide what a corporation knows about you and how that corporation makes judgments about you. TTIP changes all that. It threatens us to undermine or even sweep away your data protection and privacy. The effects could be that data detailing your politics, opinions, sexuality, medical history, religious beliefs, the times that you're at home, what you buy, and where you travel to stops being under your control. Your personal history becomes a commodity over which you have no ability to stop and control the use of. This can happen by TTIP claiming the US privacy laws are equivalent to European data protection. They are not. In the USA, data privacy laws barely exist. Companies have a free-for-all where your only protection is a 20-page contract you agree to by clicking OK. We do not click OK. We do not agree. You, the European Union and the USA do not have our consent to the removal of our privacy rights for pure commercial exploitation. These are our fundamental human rights at stake.
This is a really important thing, because democracy is what enables us to write on those banners. Democracy and campaigning and the rights that we have is what got people to get out and fight for education, to actually fight for the right to strike, to fight for better conditions, to fight for just the simple things that we need to survive as human beings. Democracy and campaigning has got us there. This TIP puts this into reverse. It turns us into the slaves of corporations. It turns democracy into a secondary force. And actually what we have to do above and beyond everything else is to fight for more democracy.
Vegetable grower in the edge of London, with a cooperative out there, and I'm speaking to you today on behalf of the Land Workers Alliance, who are an organisation of small-scale producers and family farmers in the UK. Now, we're members of the Via Campesina, the International Peasant Farmers Union, that brings together over 200 million farmers. And they're saying that farmers in Europe, farmers in America, and farmers globally are opposed to TTIP because they see it as a massive threat to their livelihoods, to public health, to our opportunities to create more sustainable, more democratic food systems in the future. When you look around at who's lobbying on TTIP, you can see agribusiness standing head and shoulders above the rest in terms of the money and the time they're putting into getting what they want out of this negotiation. And the reason they're doing that is because there's huge profits to be made for the big few in food and farming. For the rest of us in Europe, it's really bad news. If you look around, Europe is still a continent of small farmers. The average holding size is 15 hectares, which is tiny, and the vast majority of producers are much smaller than that. We've also got a relatively, far from perfect, but relatively good system of ensuring food safety, and we have strong local food cultures where people really passionately believe about the provenance of their food. Those are all under attack under TTIP. For farmers, this is a serious threat because through mutual recognition of policy frameworks, European farmers are going to be competing against products produced in America to much lower standards of environmental health, of animal welfare, and of human health. We're going to be directly competing with products that are banned in the EU because of their impact on our safety. Additionally, TTIP is set to directly attack public procurement, which means that public institutions are not going to be able to dictate their sourcing in terms of provenance. They're not going to be able to say, we want produce that comes from local suppliers, or we want our contracts to benefit local people. It's bad for farmers. It's bad for public health, because this mutual recognition is going to see that the EU, which has a quite robust system of using science and a proportional principle to analyse the impacts of food safety, is going to see that seen as the equivalent to the American system, where it's the final product that is analysed, and it's the burden of responsibilities on the state or the public to prove whether that is safe or not.
They can convince us that it's inevitable and there's nothing we can do. The moment any number of people wake up, the moment people start hearing about what's going on, the entire thing falls apart. And they know that. They're terrified of it. Hence the panic reaction we saw in Seattle and Quebec and Genoa, where the police brought out tear gas, water cannons, like vicious attacks against people. They only do that sort of thing because they're desperate, because they know that the moment these things become public, it becomes impossible. And the reason why they're doing this is a treaty which affects America and the EU. And I think that's historically significant, because these guys have been kicked out of most of the rest of the world. This is what people don't understand. The global justice movement was an amazing movement because it brought together people from every corner of the planet. There were indigenous movements, trade unionists, every sort of political collective or an organization, from farmers in Karnataka, landless peasants in Brazil, fisher people in Malaysia. Within 2 years, these people have managed to kick the IMF out of most of the Earth's surface. IMF has been the scourge of the planet. Structural adjustment policies have devastated economies, destroyed the lives of millions of people, destroyed education, destroyed health, destroyed food security for people all over the world. Within 2 or 3 years of mobilization, groups like the encompassing groups like People's Global Action, United These Alliances across the world, have essentially brought things to such a pass where the IMF has been entirely kicked out of these days. To this day, those guys, they can't operate.
Hands off public services! Hands off public services! Hands off our democracy! Hands off our democracy! Hands off our sovereignty! Hands off our sovereignty! Hands off our internet! Hands off our privacy! Hands off our food! Hands off our medicine! Hands off our democracy! Hands off our environment! Hands off financial stability! Hands off our democracy! It is such a pleasure to be here with you, to stand in solidarity with British activists and colleagues and European activists and colleagues to bring our joint power together to stop this corporate power grab. I don't need to tell you now what all of the concerns are. We've heard very eloquently from many British activists and others here today what is at stake. I bring to you two things. One is a cautionary tale from the United States, which is critical. We, in the United States, in the early 1990s, were promised more jobs, economic growth, reduced income inequality through a vast trade pact the North America Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA. It was going to bring together, it was going to raise living standards in Canada, the US, and Mexico. We weren't going to have any more immigration from Mexico because everyone in Mexico would be doing so great. And we would be creating 200,000 jobs a year in the United States. Well, 20 years later, the model has been proven to be completely bankrupt. We knew it then, and now we have the data to show it. 1 in 4 manufacturing jobs in the United States have gone away. These are the jobs that were unionized, and they've been replaced by lower paying service sector jobs. We've seen increase in income inequality. Economists across the board agree it's this failed trade policy that is part of what a major contributor to that in the United States. And we've seen corporations suing governments for public interest policy, an enormous array of policies. Moratorium on fracking in Canada, billions of dollars being demanded outside of Canadian courts in these tribunals. We've seen in Mexico the polluters getting paid $17 million by Mexican taxpayers because they had the gall to demand that they clean up a toxic waste dump because it was creating cancer in the community. We've seen this over and over, and we're seeing a vast expansion of the types of policies. Under TTIP, we know that this, instead of rethinking and learning from the mistakes of the past, what President Obama unfortunately is doing is trying to expand this model.